How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Well, I see Tucker Carlson is now attacking Dietrich Bonhoeffer, one of the heroes of World War II. My goodness gracious, the Nazi propaganda overflowing now. Is he trying to alienate his entire audience? I guess so. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. I got a little bit of a tirade for you, I'm afraid. I think I hate them all. I'm sorry. I went to bed last night and woke up this morning feeling the same way. Maybe hate is too strong a word, but I think I hate them all in Washington, D.C., the Republicans and Democrats alike. This Jeffrey Epstein stuff, let's be clear here. There are real victims. There are women who were abused. There were wealthy men who abused these women and then shelled out lots of money to them to buy their silence. Many of them can't say anything. Republicans used Jeffrey Epstein as a weapon against the Democrats. And now the Democrats are using Jeffrey Epstein as a weapon against the Republicans. Bill Clinton in these documents that came out comes off looking poorly. So does Donald Trump. So does Larry Summers. So does Barack Obama. None of them come off looking well, but the Democrats control so much of the media. They're using it to attack the Republicans. Pay no attention to the victims. Where are the names we were promised? They want to make it about Donald Trump. And you know why they want to make it about Donald Trump? They want to make it about Donald Trump because they have no answers for the economy, but neither do the Republicans. This is just kind of embarrassing. This is Mark Caputo. He was on CNN, and I got to say, CNN has gone wall-to-wall coverage about Jeffrey Epstein now. Wall-to-wall coverage about Jeffrey Epstein. It's interesting right now on the TV screen behind me. Fox News is talking about this scandal at the BBC where they edited Donald Trump to make him look bad. CNN still on Jeffrey Epstein.
And what exactly have they been doing? There's the stuff that CNN has reported on. We know about a situation room meeting with Lauren Boebert. But what else is happening behind the scenes?
Well, from what we understand, they've made a number of calls, including the president had played phone tag at one point with Nancy Mace, the South Carolina representative, and he doesn't want this, I'm sorry to use the phrase discharge petition, most people don't know what it is, but he doesn't want this measure backed by Republicans to go to the floor, but it increasingly looks like that's going to fail and there is going to be a full vote on it. Ultimately, Trump had decided in July that despite his campaign trail promise, despite the comments of his advisors, now J.D. Vance, or better said, now Vice President J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, now the Attorney General, Kash Patel, now the FBI Director, on the campaign trail, they were saying, oh, the Epstein files are going to be released. July rolls around in 2025. Trump says, nope. And once that decision was made, it just sort of created this snowball effect, and Trump is living with it, or I guess maybe a better phrase is karma. This is political karma, the law of action and reaction. You promise you're going to do something, then you reverse yourself, and then it already becomes this massive political issue that just becomes very difficult to escape.
Look, the Republicans, you have to acknowledge the idiots around Donald Trump. They caused this problem for Donald Trump. Pam Bondi literally went on Fox News, and when John Roberts asked her, do you have the list? She says, it's sitting on my desk. I'm going to release it. There was no list for her to release. And then she attacks Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who have to come out and say, turns out there wasn't a list. We looked. We assumed there was one. There is no list. And now because they tried to weaponize it against the Democrats are weaponizing it against the Republicans. The Democrats are now selectively cherry-picking emails that reference Donald Trump. So the Republicans dumped out 23,000 more documents. Turns out there's Barack Obama, there's Bill Clinton, there's Larry Summers, there's Donald Trump. There are Republicans and Democrats alike. There are a bunch of rich people behaving badly in these emails. It doesn't prove any of them were involved with Jeffrey Epstein, but the Democrats want to do this now, and the media is glad to do it for the Democrats, so you don't have to talk about the shutdown, because they lost the shutdown fight. They got nothing in the shutdown fight. And guess what? The president's out there now claiming that he's going to roll back tariffs on coffee to bring down the price of coffee when what? According to the president, tariffs didn't increase the cost of coffee. So if, Mr. President, the tariff did not increase the cost of coffee, why the hell will rolling the tariff back bring down the cost of coffee unless it increased the cost of coffee, and you got it wrong to begin with? You have been complicit with the Democrats in messing up the economy. The Democrats broke it. You promised to fix it. You've made it worse. I think I hate them all. Nobody wants to talk about the cost of living in Washington, D.C. There's not a politician in Washington who has an answer. And so you know what? The grifters are getting involved. The grifters are now saying, back in the 1950s, you could support a family of four on one income in a mansion. No, you couldn't, you idiot. It was a 900 square foot house in the middle of nowhere. And the grifters are out there trying to stir the pot and shake the tree down to get money out of it, funding themselves, promoting themselves on social media, and nobody has an actual answer for the problems. Our economy is not doing well, and the Republicans and Democrats would rather fight about Jeffrey Epstein than have to admit that neither side has a good idea on how to fix the economy. A 50-year mortgage is not a fix for the American economy. A 15-year car loan is not a fix for the American economy. That helps the banks. It doesn't help consumers. You know what would help consumers? Another tax cut would be great. Getting Washington functioning for the American people would be great. Letting the American people live their lives without government regulation would be great. Encouraging home building would be great. Getting rid of the tariffs would be great. I was talking to a home builder today. He said it's impossible to build a cheap house in this country because, one, land use regulation, two, home building regulation, and three, the tariffs on all the products that go into the house. The tariffs on aluminum, the tariffs on steel, the tariffs on lumber, the tariffs on shingles, the tariffs on the concrete, the tariffs on everything. The tariffs have driven up the price of a house. The land use regulations have driven up the price of a house. The home building regulations have driven up the price of a house. The regulators and the tariffs are killing home building, skyrocketing the house, and yet the president's team is circling around the president saying, no, it's not the tariffs. The Democrats are circling around the regulators saying, no, it's not the regulation. Meanwhile, Americans can't afford a house. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford to do anything. But hey, the cost of gas is cheap now, so rah that. And Walmart says Thanksgiving is cheaper this year than last year. The president is championing the news, 25% cheaper than under Joe Biden. Pay no attention to the fact that Walmart deleted 6 items from its historic list of Thanksgiving goods in order to bring the price down. You add those 6 items back that were there last year, Thanksgiving is more expensive now. How is it that the Republican Party of Donald Trump has co-opted the talking points of Joe Biden to claim the economy is good? I'm old enough to remember a year ago when the Republicans were screaming about the Democrats lying about the economy, and now it's the Republicans lying about the economy. The economy is not good for most Americans right now. What the hell are these people doing in Washington, D.C.? You had 45 days of a government shutdown where you were twiddling your thumbs. You couldn't come up with a good idea for an economic stimulus. The Democrats decided to plot Jeffrey Epstein. Notice. Not a single Democrat in Washington, D.C. wants to talk about the cost of living. They don't want to talk about the economy because they broke it. They denied they broke it. They said everything was fine, and now they're going to say, look over here at Jeffrey Epstein. Don't look at the economy. And what are the Democrats? What are the Democrats doing? They're trying to bash Republicans with these leaked emails of Jeffrey Epstein that reference Donald Trump. And so what is the Republican response? We've got more emails. Please don't look at the economy that we're now in charge of. Please don't look at the cost of living. Please don't look at the Walmart list and see the deleted items. No, let's look at Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is how both parties have decided to solve America's problems. Jeffrey Epstein is the answer to all questions in Washington, D.C., apparently. Is inflation going up? Pay no attention to it. Look at Jeffrey Epstein. Is the cost of living too high? I don't know. Look at Jeffrey Epstein. Are people feeling like they're falling behind? Who cares? Look at Jeffrey Epstein. It's both parties in Washington doing this. It's not just the Democrats. It's not just the Republicans. It's both of them. They're all fixated on Jeffrey Epstein because they broke the country, and not a single one of them has a solution for how to fix it. Why do I have to give you the solutions, Republicans? It's very easy. Get your president to get rid of the tariffs. It would immediately cause price drops and stimulate the economy. Stop waiting for the Supreme Court. Go put a gag on Peter Navarro, put him in the basement somewhere with the GIMP, and get the president to get the tariffs out and stimulate the economy. When the president is on television admitting the cost of coffee is high because of tariffs, get rid of the tariffs. It'll lower the price. Tell every country in the world except China, stick all the tariffs on China, and tell every other country, we'll go to zero tariffs if you go to zero tariffs, and watch what happens. Economic stimulus. But they're not going to do that because the president is a 1950s boomer who can't admit he made a mistake. And the Democrats, they can't admit they wrecked the economy in the first place because then they would have to own it because they broke it. And meanwhile, you don't care. You're struggling to buy your groceries for Thanksgiving. You're struggling. Oh, the price of eggs has gone down. Woohoo! The price of beef up, turkey up, butter up. All the prices are up other than eggs. Eggs have come down because we no longer have the bird flu killing all the chickens. Everything else is up. But hey, look, you got low gas bills. Hallelujah. Now you can drive cheaply to the grocery store and go broke there instead of at the pump. We get the government we deserve, and we deserve this because we voted for it. These people are as stupid as a bunch of raccoons in a barrel of moonshine. They have betrayed all of us. And the grifters are coming up with these stupid solutions of, if we would make this one tweak, we could all have a one-income household and live in a 5,000 square foot mansion. Nobody wants to sacrifice anymore. This is just mind-numbingly absurd. And by the way, again, there are real victims of Jeffrey Epstein. There are real victims who were horribly abused by very wealthy people. Not Bill Clinton and not Donald Trump, but who cares? Let's forget the names of the very wealthy men and the Fortune 500 companies who abuse the women so that we can make partisan political points and distract people from a bad economy. Jeffrey Epstein was a monster. Jeffrey Epstein left a trail of horror behind him. And neither the Republicans nor the Democrats are really interested in dealing with the horror. They're interested in scoring political points off a human trafficking monster so that neither side has to deal with the fact that neither side has an answer to fixing the economy. And if they don't come up with an answer, you know who will? The socialists. You know who will? The far-right neo-Nazi guys. And the country will descend further into chaos and break apart among the radical left and the radical right, offering solutions that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are willing to offer because they're too busy fighting about Jeffrey Epstein without actually giving us the names of the actual perpetrators who abused the victims because they would rather dangle it over Donald Trump or dangle it over the Democrats or dangle it over whoever they don't like. Give us the names of the actual perpetrators. We know it's not Donald Trump. We know it's not Bill Clinton. Who are the actual people who did it? Or shut up and talk about the economy and try to lower prices in this country for Americans who are headed off to do their grocery shopping for Thanksgiving and can't even afford the turkey this year thanks to what the Democrats did to the economy that the Republicans made worse when they took office. I'm a mattress snob. I travel a lot. I want a good night's sleep in my own bed. I miss my mattress when I'm gone, and I discovered Brooklyn Bedding, and I love them. I was a little bit hesitant for an online mattress until I tried Brooklyn Bedding, because you get 120 nights to try it. And I wanted a mattress that wasn't just memory foam, feeling like I'm laying in mud. I wanted one with the support of the coils, and they are not only 100% fiberglass free, but they've got great sturdy coils for a firm mattress, a great night's sleep, and they offer a 120-night comfort trial. Love it, or they'll help you return it or swap it. Go to brooklynbedding.com, use promo code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. Not available to anybody else. You got to use my code ERIC, brooklynbedding.com, promo code ERIC, for 30% off site-wide. Support the show. Let them know we sent you after checkout with that promo code. It's brooklynbedding.com. The promo code is ERIC. Handcrafted mattresses in the United States of America, and they're fantastic. brooklynbedding.com. We have an interesting phenomenon happening right now on the phones. I'm getting calls from boomers angry that I'm saying the economy isn't fine because on their paid-off mortgage and fixed income and their retirement center, they're living just comfortably. And they can't imagine that anyone is struggling in the country. This was the problem that white, wealthy Democrats had when Joe Biden was president. They were perfectly comfortable in their lily-white suburban neighborhoods where they had all the jobs, and they were like, the economy is fine. And now suddenly it's the Trump supporters. Oh, our fixed income economy's fine. We don't know what you're talking about, Erickson. You're just never Trump. Let me just give you the headlines. Car loan delinquencies hit record. Household debt hits record. $18.6 trillion. As credit card delinquencies hit records. I'm sorry, but it is definitionally not a good economy when people are at record highs in delinquencies on paying their car loans and their mortgages and their credit card bills. And just because you're fine doesn't mean the economy is fine. Try learning what your neighbor is going through. You arrogant little boomers who just think that all is well now because you won an election and it was the Democrats. You've become what you hate. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be insulting to you people, but to call the program and say everything is fine because your life is fine is the same thing the Democrats did when they were in power, and look what happened to them. And all I'm trying to tell you is I don't want the Democrats to win the midterms, but they're going to win the midterms if you people can't take your heads out of your rear end and look around and say, oh, there are problems. Maybe our side should offer solutions, and maybe tariffs were a bad idea, because guess what? Literally every single thing I told you was going to happen with tariffs are now happening. Wages are not going up. Companies are not investing. Companies are not hiring. Prices are going up. Exports are down. Everything I told you was going to happen is happening. Now you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Erickson. Everything's fine for me in my life. You know what? Everything is fine for me in my life, and was when Joe Biden was president too. But I had the wherewithal to understand that what was happening in the country was not good. And Republicans are now becoming the Democrats, claiming everything is hunky-dory and fine because your life is fine, and you have no idea what your neighbor is going through right now. And the data bears out that people are struggling, and yet nobody seems to have an answer other than tariffs or some sort of panacea. Let me move on. Let me tell you about Americans for Prosperity. If you go to afpvolunteer.com today, you can sign up with Americans for Prosperity and actually get a list of common sense conservative reforms that you can advance in your community and that are being advanced in communities around the country. You go to afpvolunteer.com, afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity today. You get involved, you get informed, you become the most informed member in your circle of friends, and then you can get out there and make a real difference in your community. A real difference in your community where you can advance school choice, deregulation for small businesses, tax cuts, roll back on the power of the bureaucracy to drive up costs. Those are the sorts of things AFP gets involved with. You can too at afpvolunteer.com. afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with Americans for Prosperity. Get involved in fighting for the future in this country, for free markets and free people across the nation. They've got chapters in every state. afpvolunteer.com. We're taking deep breaths now, lowering our blood pressure. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. To those of you who believe the economy is doing very well right now, I assume that means you can text the word donate to 33777 and help feed someone who is struggling in this great economy. Because there are people struggling in the economy, and we're trying to raise money to buy Thanksgiving meals for those who need the help this year. So if you have extra money because the economy is working for you, please consider texting donate to 33777 and help a family in need. And as the economy's working for you, maybe you can be generous with fellow Americans. Let's go to the phones here. Bill, you're going to be up first. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. It's good to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Listen, I had a comment and a question for you. I'm a middle-class electrician. I work for a large corporation, and I like the tariffs. I would like to see them used differently. I don't have a lot of faith in politicians like you. I align with you on that. But I would like more tariffs, lower income tax, and the tariffs being a consumer tax, that means everyone pays them. Rich, poor, middle class, we all pay them. And I'd like to see us get away from, funding our government with slave labor workers,
Look, I mean, if you want to treat the tariffs as kind of a national sales tax, like a fair tax, I get the point. But there's a problem, though, in that they only apply to imported goods. So I can give you the actual number. In fact, I knew this is what you wanted to talk about, so I pulled up the number. We imported $3.3 trillion of goods last year. Now, it was $4.1 trillion total, but that includes services. Tariffs only apply to goods, so that's $3.3 trillion. So if you were to apply 100% tariff to every single imported good in the country, you still wouldn't be able to actually fund the federal budget. There'd still be a deficit. So you'd still have to have the income tax in addition to 100% tariff on all imported goods.
Tax, though.
You could definitely lower the income tax. You could lower the income tax, assuming you get 60 votes in the Senate to make it happen to lower the income tax. You could. But now here's the other problem, though. If you do have a 100% tariff on all goods and you lower the income tax, people under $40,000, $45,000 a year aren't paying anything in income tax already. So they would have a 100% increase in imported goods that they're paying, so double the cost for them. They're not paying income tax already, so you'd have to figure out some sort of government rebate program probably to the people who make $45,000 or less just to make it so that their standard of living is not completely collapsed by the imported goods. So you got complications in there. If you want to treat it as a sales tax, that's fine. But I guess the larger point here, Bill, is that you and I can both acknowledge is that it is Americans who are paying this tax. It's not foreigners like we were originally told. It is a consumer tax. To the extent you're not paying the tax, American companies are eating the cost. And one of the reasons we're not seeing wage growth right now is because companies are eating the tariff, but they can't pay higher wages because they're eating the tariff. They don't want to raise your prices at the store because they know you can't afford to buy what they're selling if they put the tax on. So instead, they're eating the costs, but now they can't hire people. They can't raise the wages of their existing employees. So inflation is at 3%, wage growth is at 1%, so you're losing 2% of your spending power. That's a problem. That's a real problem. If you want to treat the tariff as a sales tax, it applies only to imported goods, but it has spillover effect into domestic goods that are made with parts, machinery that come from abroad. So those prices go up. And we know from the steel manufacturers and the aluminum manufacturers that the domestic manufacturers will raise their prices because they'll still be less than the tariff prices. So everybody's prices go up. The income tax goes down. But remember, 49% of Americans don't pay an income tax. So they're going to get a massive price increase, and they don't see the effect of an income tax coming down. So you're going to be hurting a lot of the lower middle class and the poor in doing this. In fact, I would venture to say if you're middle class, Bill, you would get hurt badly by doing what you want to do because the offset in the income tax won't make up for a 100% increase in a lot of the cost of goods that you're dealing with. Pierce, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Eric, good to talk to you again. Hey, I'm a boomer. I'm still working, and I'm 67 years old.
God
so the
bless you.
economy ain't great, you know. Oh, as long as I can. I don't want to just go sit on a porch and die. But
Amen.
and I kind of like making money too. But anyway, my point is, I don't know where these boomers, because I'm a boomer. They're saying it's good. There's no problem because I've got grandchildren who are having to have roommates, so they're not living in the basement at mom and dad's. I've got young at church, because I do a lot of lay ministry. I've got single moms with kids who have to have somebody share a home or an apartment with them so they can make it. I mean, it's how do people say it's okay? It's not. I'm sorry. Go to the fast food restaurant. What used to cost us about $5 is $12 now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're
right.
How do you say that? I mean, I just replaced wood. I've just replaced my porches and deck over the summer. I did the labor along with, family members that helped, and I spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,800 on lumber.
Wow.
That would have cost me half that 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out here every day.
Also, you say that, and don't forget that there is now a 25%, there's a 10% tariff on softwood lumber and a 25% tariff on hardwood lumber.
Yep.
So,
And that hurts. I don't care how much you drop gas prices.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is, if you've got a tariff on it, why don't we do away with the tariff, do away with income tax, and let's just have a 10% friggin' sales tax on everything. At the consumer end. That would pay for the government, and that would also relieve. And we would, if you don't spend, you don't have to pay.
Yeah. Yep. Look, that makes so much sense for me. And I got to tell you, Pierce, I'm really aggravated at the people who call in and say everything is fine now. That's what the Democrats said for 4 years when things weren't fine. And now suddenly our side is everything is fine. I don't believe that. I don't think we and our side fixed the problems. We fixed some, but not all. And when the president is telling Laura Ingraham, I'm going to cut the tariff on coffee so that coffee's cheaper, that's an admission against interest that the tariff raised the price of coffee. It's frustrating. And let me tell you something else that's really frustrating to me. Really, this is becoming a pet peeve. When Christy and I got married, I've told you guys, she had to have a double mastectomy. We lived in a rental house for a while, and we had just absurd power bills during the winter because there was no insulation in the house. We were able to buy a house, and the reason we were able to buy a house when we did is Christy got a small inheritance from her grandmother dying, and we were able to use part of it for a down payment on our house. Otherwise, we would have not been able to buy when we did. And the house we bought was about 2,300 square feet. It was built in the 1950s. Had a bit of a musty smell. We could never get out of it. 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Old house, had a fuse box. And because she had a double mastectomy, we had to have formula. My car, the window literally was held up with duct tape. It was, I buy a new car now, and I was trying to explain to my finance guy, and he was saying you shouldn't buy a new car. I said, I'm buying a new car because I went for so long with a car that literally had duct tape holding it together. I buy a new car to remind myself of what I had. We made a lot of sacrifices. And when Christy decided she wanted to stay home with the kids, I had to get more jobs. I worked multiple jobs so that my wife could stay home with the kids. We did not take vacations unless my wife's parents took us on vacation with them because we couldn't afford it. I mean, we couldn't afford more than the basic cable package. We had to give up stuff to make ends meet, and we lived the dream. We had a house, and I had a wife who stayed home with the kids. And I see all these younger people online saying, you can't do that. We need to go back to the 1950s. And I just, first of all, I want to note every single person online who says we should go back to the 1950s is a lily white person, because there's not a black person in this country who wants to go back to the 1950s. And it is a tone deafness of these people on social media who think it was fine for everybody in the 1950s, because there were a lot of people who were sitting at separate lunch counters and drinking out of separate water fountains in the 1950s. And it's just an obnoxious tone deafness of nostalgia to say we should go back to the 1950s when you're excluding roughly half the country. And in the 1950s, guess what? The average home for a working class man was 985 square feet. All of these people who want the one home with the wife who stays home with the kids barefoot and pregnant on a one household income, they want the 3,000 square foot house. They sure as hell don't want the 980 square foot house that people were living in the 1950s on one income. They don't want that. And they say, oh, well, houses are so much more expensive now. Yeah, houses actually are way more expensive now. There's a limited number of them. We should be building more. Tariffs have driven the price up. Regulations have driven the price up. Land usage regulations have driven the price up. Home building regulations have driven the price up. A lot of things we should be fighting for. A lot of things we should be fighting against. But I would note all those lily white people online who want the 1950s, they're defending tariffs because Donald Trump says they're good. They don't want to make sacrifices. You know, there are places in this country right now where you can go live in a small house on one income and do just fine. But you don't want to move there, do you? You want your cake and you want to eat it too. And that's not the way your parents had it. That's not the way their parents had it. You're so ignorant of the sacrifices your parents had to make that you really do think that they just were hunky-dory living it well on a single income back in the 1950s, 60s, or 70s. No, they weren't. They made real sacrifices for you. I make sure, and my wife makes sure, that we have real sacrifices, that we tell our kids the sacrifices we made for them, because I do not want my child growing up thinking, oh, mom and dad had it so easy and it sucked for me. No, it sucked for us too. There were months we couldn't go out to eat. There were months we lived on beans and rice, literally lived on beans and rice, because we couldn't afford the power bill and the baby formula. There were times I would get in my car after a rainstorm and there would be water on the floorboards because the window leaked and I couldn't get a new car and I didn't have the money to fix that car. We struggled and we made it work. And to a degree, you know, ironically, we were probably somewhat happier than we didn't have all the stresses of the income we have now. And, you know, in return now, I take my in-laws on vacation with us because for so long they took us on vacation with them. And I buy a new car now, even though my finance guy tells me I'm insane for doing so, but I do so to remind myself of all the years I drove a car that had duct tape around it to keep it together. And we have a nice house. It's not a giant house. There's a home builder in Atlanta. His name is Vince. He's a friend of mine. I want him to one day build a house. I can't afford the land right now. I don't have the money for the land. We have people who drive past our house on a near daily basis just to see if we live there. I want a house with a gate and no neighbors so people can't do that. So my family feels safe, because they don't really feel safe these days. But I can't afford it. And we make do. And when I see these people in this fantasy world online saying, oh, in the 1950s, a man could have 8 kids and a wife at home and live off his auto mechanic income in a 5,000 square foot house. No, that world never existed. Nostalgia is never real. And we have this delusion of nostalgia now where a bunch of young people are convinced that things were way better back when black people had to drink out of different water fountains. And people could live in a very small house, but in their mind, it's giant. My parents lived in an older house that they had bought. It had been built in the 1800s, and they fixed it up over time. And I'm always reminded of that, or they live in my grandparents' house now. And here's part of what's happening is I remember going to my grandparents' house when I was a kid, and it seems so giant. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, separate dining room from the kitchen and a living room. And now I'm grown and I go back to the same house and it's so small. It's just at one point I was 3 feet tall and now I'm just about 6 feet tall. changes your perspective. So all of these people who are in their 20s and 30s who went to their grandparents' house when they were little and thought, oh, this house is so big. Actually, no, it was a tiny house your grandparents lived in. Your impression of it was wrong because you were small back then. And now you think you should be able to have a 3,000 square foot house on a single income and have 4 kids and everything should work out fine. You can still do that in some parts of the country. You just have to be prepared to move there and make some serious sacrifices in your life. But none of you want to make the sacrifices your parents made because you're ignorant of the sacrifices your parents made, and you've built your entire plan for the future on a nostalgia of something that didn't really exist, and it screwed up your entire worldview. You can go have that house. You just have to move somewhere you don't want to. And that's the problem. This country has always been a land of opportunity, but those opportunities have come with sacrifices people don't want to make anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to pause yelling at I'm sorry. My blood pressure's just worked up by all the stupidity in Washington over the Epstein stuff, and forget the real victims, forget about solving the economy, all the 20 and 30 something bros online complaining about a reality that never was. It just, there are days I just get really frustrated, lost my temper, and I apologize. And a real issue, and we're still working. We've crossed $100,000. As of about 30 minutes ago, we crossed $100,000 in money raised to help poor people at Thanksgiving who are trying to put food on the table. And I want to thank you guys. We're still going to be pushing it for a while longer. We're doing what we can to help, but every dollar you can give helps. If you go to ericthanksgiving.com or text the word donate to 33777, you're making a real world difference around the country, putting food on tables for people who are struggling. And there are a lot of us. I'm not struggling. I'll be honest with you. And my wife and I, as a result, are trying to be way more generous in what we can give to people, because I know a lot of people, even in our community, who are struggling, and among our group of friends who are struggling. If you can help, please help. Please help. Text the word donate to 33777, and just a $40 gift will provide a Thanksgiving meal for a family of 4 in this country. Thank you. Thank you very much for your generosity. Now, I need to tell you about Hillsdale College, because they want to provide for you an education, a good education, on a topic you care about. If you go to ericforhillsdale.com today, you can sign up for one of 40 different classes on a topic you choose. Their faculty delivers great education for you. It's from chemistry to mathematics to economics to literature to philosophy to political science to history. You pick the class. There's one on capitalism. There's one on Aristotle's ethics. There's one on C.S. Lewis. Every class is divided into 30-minute video episodes. They're all very engaging and informative. You're not going to get bored. Depending on the class, depends on the number of those videos. You do it at your own pace, completely for free. You get a certificate of completion. You go to ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. Sign up with Hillsdale College today and improve your mind.